how many days are in a Martian year.
Really?
So then you look at the god that actually brought the Huitzilopochtli is, I guess, the name of this god that brought the Aztec down from around the area of Texas to where Tenochtitlan was built. Huitzilopochtli was their war god. And the motif that was supposedly the symbol that was going to show them where to build was an eagle with a serpent in its talons sitting on a cactus. I thought that was really bizarre.
Right.
Because before that, I had been looking at how in theurgy the celestial has been put onto the earth. It's almost like on the earth, the megalithic sites of the prehistoric megalithic sites were mirroring the heaven.
Right.
But when you have a mirror image, you have actually a reverse of yourself. I mean, my right side is suddenly the left side of the image that I'm looking at.
Right.
It actually isn't.
Yeah.
And so what actually has occurred then is when you have the 12 signs of the zodiac, they're represented in name and in form in the northern hemisphere of the earth, only in reverse. And the trick then is, in this megalithic sort of idea of heaven and earth being mirrored together or married together, and married actually comes from the root of Mars again, but I'm getting off track.
Of course, yeah.
The idea is that all 12 signs of the zodiac are going to represent their place over the earth in 360 degrees. So they're going to have, each a 30-degree swath times 12.
Yeah.
And so they start from some prime meridian. What will that prime meridian be? Well, if you look at the zodiac, it's always divided by the first degree of Aries. Well, the only reason for that is because the zodiac goes back to Greek times. They say it goes far greater in antiquity than that. But
yeah, of course.
Supposedly set it up when the spring equinox began and their year began in March 21st, and the sun was rising at the beginning of Aries. So that's where they put it. That's the prime meridian.
Yeah.
Longitudinally. But it doesn't really make sense because you have to find some place that's much more substantial, and that would be the star Sirius. Because the star Sirius is the brightest in the northern hemisphere. And so if you would put your meridian along that, then, let's say the meridian then, if it's on Greenwich right now, that also corresponds to the star Sirius, which the star Sirius is in Canis Major. And above Canis Major is Gemini.
Right.
The twin. Or the pillars, if you want. Because that's their astronomical glyph. So then you're going to have to move again. From them, you move off to Cancer, I believe, and then Leo, and then Virgo. And lo and behold, Virgo resides over United States.
That's right.
About from 75 degrees to, guess where, 103 degrees longitude, where Roswell is. That's where her feet are.
Right.
Right where her feet would be.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly esoteric, configuration. But right underneath America is Mexico. And right underneath Virgo is Hydra. And Hydra has this bird with its talons in its back. Mm-hmm. That's Corvus. And you have all this motif symbolically of what the Mexican flag is, and also which you also see many times is the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Right.
Which is actually called the River of the Wolf. Guadalupe is a cognate form of actually an Arabic word. Guadalajara is also an Arabic word because of when Andalusia in Spain, when the Muslims actually invaded, they stayed there till 1492, and there's quite a bit of Islam and Arabic influence there, and so a lot of the names that the Spanish applied to Mexico has a lot of Arabic root sources in it. But anyway,
interesting. Yeah.
This name Guadalupe means River of the Wolf. In the celestial northern hemisphere, the River of the Wolf would be the Milky Way, because it runs right through on the ecliptic. It runs right through two places. And the ecliptic is where the zodiac is. That's where the 12 signs of the zodiac is. That's where the sun travels. That's where all our planets seem to travel in the line, the moon also, on this line. And the Milky Way crosses that place in two points, and one of them is between where Gemini is, where Taurus is.
Right.
And so right below Gemini, you have this huge river of stars, and then right above Canis Major, where Sirius is, that's where the river of stars is also running. So the river of the wolf, at least in this paradigm, is the Milky Way that comes right through Gemini and Taurus.
Mm.
So you're looking at a celestial symbolic tapestry that's been superimposed on the Earth, and you can also derive this sort of theurgic information from it.
Of course.
Because I've even found grimoires, Masonic grimoires, where you have a perfect image of Virgo, complete with wings and the branch she holds in one hand, and she's pointing on a globe to the center of the United States, which indeed she would actually reside in her 30-degree swath.
Yeah.
And it's an astounding sort of parallel that you see even below in Mexico, the symbols of Hydra and Corvus incorporated in their flag and incorporated in symbols that the god of war who actually formed this community way back in the 1500s.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really that long ago. And you move even farther south, you can see the demarcation between Virgo and Leo is where they have these cults of lion humans, where their faces are divided right in the center. One side's a lion and one side's a human.
Yeah.
And then you move even farther to the east, and it's just about lions. Pumapunco, in fact, in Bolivia, the whole area there is dedicated to this great lion. In fact, the human itself, near Cusco, Peru, is dedicated to. The whole city is built in the shape of a puma, and those huge stones in the Sacsayhuaman fortress are supposed to be the teeth of this giant puma. And there's many more examples. So theurgically, these are all aligned with the whole scheme, the heaven scheme, and also the timeline.
And this is something that is, continuing then to this day. And I mean, again, if we just take a more modern example, you mentioned Virgo and you mentioned the United States, and you have this beautiful image where you show that they venerated this, so to speak, when they name they name Virginia to Virginia and Maryland to Mary's land. There's a kind of a veneration for this still, and that also means or suggests that there are people around that are aware of this, and they are continuing, if you will, this tradition, so to speak.
Yeah, and its latitude, of course, is at 38.5 degrees north latitude, which is 19.5 divided. It's 19.5 times 2. And you take that number, 30.5, 2 times, of course, you get 77, which happens to be its longitude. If you take 77 times 66.6, you actually get the number of nautical miles between the center of Washington, D.C. and the Temple Mount in Jerusalem.
Really? Huh.
And so all these things were incredibly well thought out.
Yeah.
And even the monuments that are there, they're all geometrically and mathematically precise, located in the right place, put there at the right time, designed in the right form.
So, I mean, David, then I have to ask you, and I guess we can begin to round things up on this note as well, but, that seems to suggest, to me in a way that it is something beyond, human intelligence that is creating all this. Of course, if we talk about this in a fractal term, then I guess it doesn't mean even if whatever man lays his hands upon and create and build cities and whatnot, you'll be able to find this pattern in the things that we also create, and that potentially might mean that there isn't an incredible intelligence behind every single little move that we make. But in a way, when you think about it, to me it suggests that there is another form of intelligence behind these things, and this intelligence is kind of steering events, if you will, in this direction. Would you agree on that or not?
in fact, Manly P. Hall wrote about theurgy and being connected. And I guess that he was saying that it was, for him, a flash of insight, but then when he realized just how connected he was into the hierarchy that existed all around.
Yeah.
He talked about the cosmocrators in Greek, these beings that have actually been set over the earth, over cities and provinces, in countries that have been hierarchical angelic masters of those places, politically, and I suppose you could think of it morally. But the earth doesn't. The earth itself is actually characterized in the New Testament as owned by the rebel,
right,
for himself.
Right.
And you can actually see some of these motifs that, like you're saying, they still happen, and you definitely can see them. And one of the most astounding ones I saw is the connection between Daniel 10. Daniel's talking in the prophecies of Daniel, in the book of Daniel. He's saying that he was praying for the return of the exiles from Babylon to Jerusalem and the rebuilding of the temple. And then, 21 days later, Gabriel the angel appears to him and says, the second you started doing this, I was sent to you. But I was prevented by the prince of Persia 21 days, and Michael, the angel that stands up for Israel, kept this angel from keeping me as a messenger to come to you. And now I'm here. And he says, anyway, he gives them the interpretation of his visions, tells them all that's going to happen in the future, which is our future. Then you look at that area of the world today in Persia, Iran, and also in Iraq, where Babylon was. And you look at America's attack, Operation Iraqi Freedom, which began from the border of Kuwait, and they moved in, and it took them exactly 21 days to move into Baghdad and pull down the statue of Saddam Hussein. So you have the number again appearing, and this idea that there's some sort of spiritual hierarchy that only allows things to happen in a certain way at a certain time. And the force, I mean, if the force did not allow American army to go in, this supernatural angelic force, we wouldn't have gone in. There's no way we could have gone in.
Right.
But it would have prevented it. We would have gotten, maybe there would be a nuclear, detonation. Who knows what would happen? But if it's not the right time, it won't ever happen. And there's also examples in late, earlier times. The Bar Kokhba rebellion is one good example. And at its height, in 133 AD, so the number 33 comes up again, Bar Kokhba himself, he was rebelling against the Romans, actually was able to start the sacrifice of the Temple of Jerusalem again. But nowadays, that's commemorated by the Jews. The whole Bar Kokhba rebellion it was crushed mightily. They started out with almost 400,000 people, and then they were all, killed by the Romans. And then the center of Judaism was actually moved into Babylon, basically, and it points north. Jerusalem became desolate after that point, to the point of having salt thrown into the ground around it, so that nothing could grow at all over the area. The temple was completely razed so that there was nothing but a field. But anyway, it's actually commemorated in a time called Lag BaOmer, because one of the rabbis that actually promoted Bar Kokhba at that time wrote a book called Zohar, the Book of Radiance. And that pinpoints, and it actually underscores the number 33 and the idea of the Messiah appearing in the future, and all the things that necessarily have to connect to that, geometrically too, because it's talking about Kabbalah, it's talking about the Jewish mysticism. But what's really amazing is it's celebrated on the 33rd day after Passover. And it's always celebrated on the 33rd day after Passover. That number seems to be absolutely connected to this idea of the return of the Messiah in even the modern Jewish mind.